At the meeting, when was this? Yesterday, for the State Board of Education, they approved permanent rules for the controversial House Bill 1775, which bans the teaching of certain concepts about race and gender in Oklahoma public schools. 1775 prohibits Oklahoma teachers from teaching anything that, quote, any individual by virtue of his or her race or sex is inherently racist, sexist, or oppressive, whether consciously or unconsciously, and that, quote, any individual should feel discomfort, guilt, anguish, or any form of psychological distress on account of his or her race or sex. And then also there's stuff about meritocracy or traits such as work ethic. So, like, if you're just so hardworking that people don't like you for being a tryhard, that's illegal too. Anyway, this law is insane. I don't even know how they would enforce this. Obviously, we all know who it will likely be enforced against. It will not be wealthy white folks, if you needed a diagram to tell you that. But anyway, State Board of Ed passed that, and now you've got, let's see if we can watch this. It's Ryan Walters. I'm proud Oklahoma is one of the first states in the country to protect against critical race theory and leftist indoctrination in our schools. We must always ensure our students are taught our nation's history without a left-wing agenda. So here, let's watch this clip real quick. Hopefully you guys can hear it.
Good afternoons, Oklahomans. I just want to take a minute to thank the State Board for putting rules in place around HB 1775, and I am so proud that the state of Oklahoma is one of the first states in the country to ban critical race theory from our schools. In the state of Oklahoma, there will be no state-sponsored racism. In the state of Oklahoma, in our schools, you will not tell a child that they are inferior because of the color of their skin. You will not tell a child that they should be ashamed because of the color of their skin. And as Secretary of Education, as a history teacher myself, and most importantly as a parent, I am so glad that we will keep left-wing indoctrination out of our schools. Our kids need to know our history. They need to know why America is the greatest country in the history of the world. And they need to know all of our history. But they need to know that America is the greatest country in the history of the world because of the principles this country was built upon, because we believe that individual rights were given to you by God, and because we believe that morality and Christian values are the way to live your life. So thank you so much to the State Board, to the legislature who passed the law, to the governor who signed the law, for making Oklahoma one of the first states to ensure critical race theory won't be in our schools.
So, yeah, this was super weird. So anyway, he said twice that America is the greatest country in the history of the world, which, you know, yeah, hot damn if that ain't indoctrination. But then also that we're founded on Christian values and morals and ethics. And so, I mean, you know, obviously he's playing to the primary electorate, but it's like this guy is not running to be even a lawmaker. He's literally running to be a state superintendent, which is like the person that guides education policy. I mean, so helps vote on curriculum. So like Joy walked the vote. She knew they were gonna like change stuff and do some shenanigans. I'm pretty sure she did not vote on this one. Or maybe that was something. Maybe I'm thinking about something else. There was like another thing that she got kind of roped into. But anyway, yeah, I don't know. Thoughts, opinions?
Yeah, because we've been over this before, and it's just like there's only so many things that we can just keep saying about this. Like, I'm exhausted. Like, I'm just exhausted from watching this guy post, like, videos to Twitter every freaking day, like, saying something that doesn't need to be said for people who aren't really on Twitter for him to engage with. Like, there's not a lot of people who support him, like, through his platform on Twitter. It's mostly people attacking him, so I don't know why he keeps choosing to use Twitter, but I don't know. Maybe it pays his bills. I don't freaking know.
Yeah.
I'm just like, honestly, on all these issues, how many times can we say the same fucking thing? Like, Bruh.
Yeah, and so I guess Joy did vote for this. There was something else she voted against. I didn't see it, but anyway,
Yeah, like the whole, teaching about race, in the language that you can use to describe it. Like, I can't tell you a time during my entire, like, kindergarten through, senior year of high school where we really talked about anything like this. Like, the closest we ever got was my Oklahoma history teacher telling us that she was going to teach us about the Tulsa race riot, because that's what they were calling it back in when I was like in ninth grade, would have been like 2011, 2010. And now we call it the race massacre, and then that never happened. And most of what I learned about Black people, at least their history in Oklahoma, came through being in AASU, which is the African American Student Union. Like, these things aren't being taught, they aren't being learned, and they're really just wasting energy on creating a bill that's banning something that never existed in the first place. So, I don't know. I guess they're happy with that. I guess they're having a good time wasting each other's energy and resources, but
that's totally the thing. Is it's like you guys are literally just circle jerking about nothing at this point, because I went to a Black high school, the oldest Black high school in this state, and historically, and I mean, it's not like they were just teaching us like this Black radical agenda. Like, I'm trying to think if we even learned about Tulsa when at there, even, 2 hours, not even 2 hours away from Tulsa. So it's just like I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, and I grew up outside of Tulsa.
Like Black history in schools is literally like Black people came over here on slave ships, and then Abraham Lincoln freed them, and then Martin Luther King saved the world, and it's been great ever since. Like, that's what they tell you at school. They tell you fucking Rosa Parks was an old lady whose feet was tired. Not that was actually a planned action, and that Rosa Parks was a fucking activist, and she was a badass. Like they like things like that. Like, they don't even tell the whole damn story. They don't even get the story straight. So it's like,
yeah, and then we have the whole Clara Looper corridor, like 23rd Street, right by the Capitol. Meanwhile, I didn't know who Clara Looper was until like 3 years ago, and I'm 25 years old. Like, never heard her name once in school, and she was one of like the pillars of the civil rights movement. And she's from here, and none of us even knew until we were all adults, and then some other people told us about it. So,
bro, people, I met, like, and it's crazy because I met Clara Looper when I was a kid, right at a Martin Luther King parade one year. Me and my little brother got to literally like chop it up with her for a while and ring the freedom bell with her before she died. And it's crazy because it wasn't until at least 10 years later that I was able to understand the significance of that experience, because I did not know who she was.
Right.
Like a fucking civil rights. I got to ring the freedom bell at the Capitol with the civil rights icon and did not even know that was a whole thing. That was a thing, because we don't even talk about how sit-ins in America as a form of civil disobedience started in Oklahoma.
Yeah, when we talk about sit-ins, we talk about the ones that happened in like Alabama or Mississippi at like, the counters. It's like, well, we were doing that here.
Clara Looper started that shit at Cat's drugstore. Like, come on now.
Yeah, and the community here tries their best to like lift that up and have events. I mean, I've been to several, community events that have honored that and tried to remind that. But yeah, I mean, the fact that that's not part of the standard, and like maybe some of it is there now, but it's just, I don't know. To me, these laws are just so badly written and can be applied in such grotesque ways. And again, like, it's only going to go one direction. Like, the only people that are going to ever think that they could use that law for them is going to be, white people who
And not to
don't
mention,
want to
it's
feel bad.
teaching children that white people's emotions matters more than accurate portrayal of U.S.
Yeah.
history. So
Yep.
it's just continuing this stigma of white people are superior because that's what they're trying to keep it safe as. Like they don't want any type of challenge.
Yeah.
That's the craziest thing to me, is that they literally write these blatant racist bills that are meant to uphold their status quo and their, power dynamics and perpetuate white supremacy. And then they're like, I'm not racist.
Yeah. Me? What?
Like,
yeah. And then I get really annoyed at all these free speech things about talking about left wing, cancel culture at colleges and stuff, and I'm like, what the hell is this? Like, I mean, I went to college and never got canceled, or never saw anyone get canceled, and never heard anything about canceling. Like, what is this? Like, we're literally not allowed to teach certain subjects. We're not allowed to talk about the 1619 project. Like, it's just like it's a news thing. Like, I mean, it's just a thing that you talk about. Like, it's crazy. Like, I just don't. I don't know.
I think it's funny with the canceling things too, that like they're so like against cancel culture until they're ready to cancel Black history.
Yeah. Or feeling any responsibility for what their predecessors did, or the outcomes of policies that they enacted. I mean, it's like people act like, civil rights was ancient history. It's like, all those people, I mean, not all of them now, but most of those people are still alive. Like they...
If you wouldn't have killed the rest of them, they would probably still be alive too.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, and we can't act like we're so far removed from this because, like, my father was literally alive when segregation was abolished. Like, it's not even 2 generations away from me. It's literally my father. Like,
Yeah.
Born in 1948, served in the Vietnam War, like, probably didn't go to an integrated school until he was in high school. And it's just, it's very visceral. And my father wasn't ever really the type who talked about the racism that he experienced. But there were so many situations that we were in together where, like, I could tell it was happening, at least as, like, a high schooler and beyond.
Yeah.
And, he would always take the high road. He's like, yeah, it's clear that they're not going to fuck with us at this store, so we're not going to give them our money. And we would just bounce, like, immediately. So we still live with the implications of segregation in a slave society. And to pretend like it doesn't exist is to just make the matter even worse, so...
Can't fix what you don't address. I mean, yeah. Go ahead.
I think it's really interesting that you bring that up, because a lot of like places are still segregated in Oklahoma. If you ask me, Tulsa is still very segregated. Like North Tulsa, South Tulsa, like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you can't act like this is like y'all already iterated. This isn't ancient history. This is a generation removed from us and still happening today, like right now.
No,
right,
I mean, in my defense, this was years ago now, but like I met a Black pastor one time at S&B Burger Joint in downtown Oklahoma City, and it is literally right on the train tracks. And so we're talking, and I'm like, it just sort of like dawned on me. It's like, that's the other side of the tracks. Like, it's literally, you go to the east of the railroad tracks in Oklahoma City, and you're basically in the east side of Oklahoma City. And, I mean, it's just like, and it's still basically like that. I mean, it's like, there's still like a pretty stark dividing line right there. I mean, anyway.
If I'm correct, where that S&B Burger Joint used to be where Black people lived until they got pushed all out.
Yeah.
Right.
You know?
So
then we built a highway, and then we built railroad tracks through the Black community to separate them. The same way they did North Tulsa, there is a highway through Greenwood.
Right.
Oh, I mean,
the same way they did Detroit. It's every Black I mean, or every like urban area in the country historically, you can look at a fucking map and there's a highway and
I
railroad
mean,
tracks.
it's even like the history of maps in Oklahoma City. Like you watch the maps videos and they'll like do a little clip of like and the birthplace of jazz in Deep Deuce or whatever, and it's like literally the last black-owned business got driven out of there like 5 years ago or something.
Yeah.
I mean, like it's like literally nobody that once lived there lives there now because they
Yeah.
couldn't afford it, but then you ran them all off, and it's like so.
Can I explain it really quick?
Please,
Can I
please.
explain
Okay,
how
go
we've
deep.
moved black people around Oklahoma City?
Yeah.
So black people started in Deep Deuce. That's where the railroad was. That's where most of the warehouses that employed black people were. That's where we were at. That's where our businesses were at. And then suddenly the railroad becomes not the main way of, moving things. Great Depression hits. We got to move on. And so black people start to go bankrupt, and then they start to move further north. And 23rd Street, where the McDonald's is and the Byron's liquor store, that became the new black area. Then they moved them again whenever they built the highway to the other side of the highway, but they also deemed the area directly to the east of the highway as an industrial zone, which is inhabitable for people because you have refineries, you've got all these factories. There were at least 2 or 3 Superfund sites that were cleaned up in the past 30 to 40 years that were all right over there. And so black people just kept getting pushed further and further. And now we're out by the landfill in Forest Park, and we're on the southeast side by the other landfills. They're pushing us away for a reason because they want us to be in the least healthy places possible. So if you live on the east side, you're already at a higher risk for getting asthma, cancer, learning disabilities, heart problems, everything. So it's environmental racism. Just plain and simple.
And it's like literally baked into maps, which the first one passed in the mid 90s, and we've done 3 or 4 iterations, and it's like it's still doing that. And the resource allocation is still largely going to like white developers and wealthy people downtown and business interests. So it's like that's important to learn about. And if that makes you feel a certain way as a white person, then I don't know what to tell you.
I just want to take this time to publicly say
history.
fuck Stanley Draper and everything that he did to this city. Fuck that guy.